Hey, it's almost the winter season, and it just so happens that one of the villains most requested to be in the Scariest Villains lineup when it comes to the Scooby-Doo Rogues Gallery has been waiting for this time to come out. Today, we're headed into the first season of the Scooby-Doo Show, originally the Scooby-Doo Dynamite Hour, for Season 1, Episode 4, What a Shocking Ghost, originally aired October 2nd, 1976. Our scariest villain that frightened audiences when younger this time, the 10,000-volt ghost. This terrifying specter is so iconic that, in the live-action film Scooby-Doo 2 Monsters Unleashed, he was one of the villains chosen to be brought to life after being stolen from the museum, and he definitely made an even scarier impact in that film. The film Trick or Treat Scooby-Doo even referenced him in more recent times, as the Scooby-Doo show has often been found to have some of the truly scariest villains of the franchise nobody can forget. Beyond the Scooby and Dynamite DVD containing the entire season, you can also find this episode on the 2012 winter-themed DVD set, 13 Spooky Tales, Holiday Chills and Thrills, which I have right here. Though the set weirdly spells the name of the title wrong, the same as digital platforms, saying Wada rather than Wat-A, destroying the pun about Watt being a unit of power and the ghost being made up of, well, literally 10,000 volts. In the Scooby-Doo show's theme song, you can even find multiple shots of the episode used as footage, making it clear this was one to be remembered. Let's get into it. The episode opens up in the ski resort town Winterhaven, panning through as we immediately catch sight of our ghost, though the way he walks is kind of silly really. He's such a unique design though. He very much stands out from any of the other villains. From the heat of his energy, he simply melts the lock on this gate to the power plant away and enters. Meanwhile, the gang are on the road driving through the snow, dressed in their winter clothes hoping to get to town and ski, and currently almost out of gas and without a heater in this freezing cold. Scooby is right to wrap himself further, 20 below is no joke. They see a sign advertising Herbie's hamburger place a mile ahead in Winterhaven. Happy to see a town coming up that they can get some gas at. And also worth some celebration,
it's only 5,280 feet to our 50 millionth hamburger.
50 millionth hamburger?
they finally make it to town safe, but as they drive through, they notice how odd it is that the entire town appears blacked out and deserted like a ghost town. Even the gas station is closed. Bad news for their empty tank. And worse, Herbie's is closed. No hamburgers for the boys. They finally run out of gas and get out, prepared to hike to the next gas station, but it's just too far, so Daphne decides they'll spend the night instead. Velma notices a light on in the ski lodge, and when Scooby peeks in, the glass is so cold it freezes to his nose. They have to pull it off, which could have been a scary outcome itself. When Shaggy replaces it and knocks, it seems they might already be running into our spook, and at first glance it seems they might as well have by their reaction. The man removes his mask, however, and invites them in from the cold finally. It's not really better inside though, as the man, Mayor Dudley, says they have no power for heat or lights. I don't pretend to know why Fred and Daphne are serving face, as Velma asks why they're having these issues. Mayor Dudley finally name drops the 10,000-volt ghost as the source of the town's troubles, beginning the story of how the town was once a popular ski resort. However, when a violent winter storm hit, a high-tension wire was blown down, and the owner of the power plant, Mr. Collins, wanted it fixed immediately despite the ongoing storm, ordering his chief electrician, Mr. Voltner, to go and repair it. Mayor Dudley joined Collins, being anxious about getting it done himself, as Voltner went up to do it alone. An explosion unfortunately happened, the circuit breakers overloading and blowing out all the transformers, so the two ran out to check on Voltner, only to find him gone without a trace, only his hat remaining. As Velma asks if they saw him again, Mayor Dudley reveals he began to appear once more as a ghost, seeking revenge against the town and power company, terrorizing the area so much that everyone was frightened away. Figures a guy named Voltner would become the 10,000-volt ghost. Much as the boys want to get out though, they're still stuck here out of gas. Mayor Dudley offers them to stay here, but warns them to leave as soon as they can. Fred and Velma believe they might be able to crack this case for him before they go though. The ghost listening in is probably not a fan of that. The gang head out to investigate the power plant's gate that was recently broken into, looking like someone melted the lock with a blowtorch, and Fred finds another clue, all new snow with an icy trail in it leading right to the plant. As they go in, Velma warns Shaggy not to slip. He boasts about his steadiness, and then he trips because he is a man, landing on Scoob and zooming through the snow, right into the door with a head start. Inside the plant, it doesn't seem especially friendly, and the ghost is already haunting about. Fred stops as he sees an ominous shadow, so they tell Scooby he has to go check, Velma offering Scooby snacks that surprisingly work on him on the first try this time. It seems like he's caught the guy, so they all run over to see and find Scooby on top of the owner himself, Mr. Collins. He introduces himself as they realize they just jumped the one person who should be allowed to roam around this place, them being the trespassers in this moment who just assaulted him. He says he was trying to repair the generator, because every time he gets one fixed, the ghost short-circuits it again, and then rightfully asks why they are here. They say they're trying to capture the ghost, but it kinda just looks like some teens on YouTube trying to do an amateur ghost hunt for fun. Can't blame his lack of faith. Daphne still finds his behavior suspicious though. They split up her usual to cover more ground, and to no surprise, the ghost hails Shaggy and Scooby. Scoob's super nose sniffs out the cafeteria and just barely saves them though, unaware of what even happened. They even find some food, though it's so frozen that it literally cracks the floor when it falls. A little heat might help with that, and there seems to be a pretty strong source of it offering itself up and cooking it real nice, though Scooby realizes what it's attached to isn't quite so positive. Well, not in the way they want. The guy finally growls enough to scare them off, though Scooby smartly does run back to stuff the cooked meat into his mouth before he goes and continues the chase. Meanwhile, Velma, Fred, and Dav go through the office and find nothing. But given that they just ran into and assaulted the owner, this feels especially invasive for them to be doing here without permission. The boys run in as the others ask if they found anything, and conveniently, they just have to open the door and show them as it stares back at the gang. Shutting the door back doesn't even help, it just burns right through. After managing to ditch it, they immediately find another clue. A bunch of sunflower seeds randomly dropped on the floor, which they figure would only be typical in a birdcage or pet shop. Daphne remembers seeing one of those in town, so Fred sends Velma with the boys to go check it out, while he and Dav will check out Voltner's abandoned home. We'll be right back.
Introducing 2 all-new DVD sets featuring classic cartoons. 32 nutty tales from the famed Scooby-Doo Dynamite Hour.
Jinky.
Scooby-Doo and the gang solve mysteries.
Here we go again. Wow.
Plus a look at unseen Hanna-Barbera treasures.
Zoinks!
The Scooby-Doo Dynamite Hour.
Did you see that?
It's all your favorite characters.
You know what to do, kids.
Look for both of these collector sets on DVD now.
This is a TV special just for you.
The trio head out in their slow snowmobile, powered entirely by Scooby's feet with the lack of gas out here, though we had this great moment of reaching a hilltop, them flying down at top speed, and Scooby on top of Velma covering her eyes. I mean, they get where they needed, crashing directly into the pet shop, so... How normal is it to see monkeys in a small-town pet shop, though? They compare the seeds stocked here with the ones at the plant, which do seem to be identical, Scooby giving them a taste test just to be sure. He's having his Ratatouille moment as he confirms. The boys get a fright that turns out not to be the ghost, but rather this parrot in the shop.
Pretty good, eh? Want to hear John Wayne?
Shaggy figures it must know about the ghost, which it does another impression of, so Shaggy takes it and the 3 crowd around it to interrogate it like a couple of cops. Scooby gets a little too into character though. Velma tries her hand, simply asking for direct clues, so it says rubber suit, tunnel, closet, leaving them with that. Sure enough, inside the closet, they find a rubber suit made for a scuba diver, despite there being no water in this area. Velma asks Scooby to pull it out, backing himself way up because he can't get it off the hanger, and it's this point where we ask why she didn't pull it off the damn hanger herself instead of telling the dog to get the evidence. He gets flung back into the closet, exposing a secret door, leading to the tunnel from the clue. But as they walk in, a hand closes the door on them, locking them inside. At Voltner's place, everything is covered in dust and cobwebs, looking appropriately abandoned since his disappearance.
Found anything yet, Daphne?
I sure have. I found that this place is a mess and so's my hair.
Adjusting the mirror, part of a letter hidden behind it falls out, which seems to say whereas running southwesterly parcels 27, 28, 43, 44, 45. A clue, but currently without meaning. Back in the tunnel, the trio start to head in deeper with nowhere else to go.
Anybody there? No!
Further in, they spot a ladder and start to climb, coming up inside the power plant, just as Velma suspected. Yet another clue. At the ski lodge, everyone regroups with Mr. Dudley and Mr. Collins to tell them about the clues. A diver's wetsuit, bird seeds, and a tunnel leading from the pet shop to the power plant. And they believe the partial letter is key to pulling all of those together. Mr. Collins suspiciously offers to take it and check it out, but Fred snatches it back and says they'll take care of that now. As the night goes on, everyone does their research, Velma hunting for a record book to explain the letter. Just as she finds it though, old Sparky shows up right on cue, so Velma tosses the book to Shaggy, he and Scoob making a break for it and hiding in a filing cabinet. Repositioning themselves with some others, they play whack-a-mole in this iconic scene from the opening credit sequence. They dash off again and finally run back into the gang after losing the spook, though they kinda ran into them a little too hard. Scooby's body has started to melt into Fred's arm here. Later at the power plant, Fred has a big wire, explaining he's going to use it to make an electromagnet like he learned in school, planning to drop it on the ghost, hoping the action of his electrical current on the opposing poles will make him the magnet and stick him to any large metal.
And he'll have a real magnetic personality, huh, Fred?
For the trap, they need a pair of skis, a bobsled, and snow to make a ski run. And with everything in place, you might be flabbergasted to find the girls are the bait tonight. Not Shaggy and Scooby for once. They need to get the ghost to chase them under the catwalk, while the guys handle the rest. And Velma's sure he'll fall for it so long as they keep the book with the evidence. As expected, with old Sparky walking around, they just tease him with the book and he's fixated. The girls having to start their run back as Fred gets into place. The ghost runs right into the skis. Fred dumps the wire around him, he flies down the ski run, and the boys run over with that said piece of large metal mentioned before, which he is immediately pulled to. They run him through the door a little too well, turning him into a giant snowball headed right at them. But in the end, their giant ball of chaos does land right at the county jail as intended. The boys introduce the snowball as the ghost, but as it melts off, he looks very different. The process of melting short-circuited his suit, ready to be exposed, so Fred unmasks him and reveals Voltner himself. Mayor Dudley seems surprised, but Velma calls him out, saying Voltner is done doing his dirty work, bringing back up what the letter had said. Referencing the records book, the mayor is documented as buying the parcel numbers referenced in the letter dirt cheap. When he found out a freeway was going through those specific parcels, he knew the land would be valuable. He paired up with Voltner, who used his wetsuit to insulate himself from electricity, and using a battery pack would become the ghost. The pet shop became a hideout, and the tunnel inside allowed him access to the plant without being seen, able to sabotage the generators and scare everyone away so they could buy the land cheap, but the bird seed stuck to his shoes and gave it all away. Mayor Dudley tries to get away, but Scooby's paw is enough to put a stop to that. The next day, the town finally has power again, and the gang has been able to get gas finally, now ready to leave. Scoob isn't ready to go without one last run down the ski slope, however, flying down as we get this iconic shot also used in the opening theme for the show, landing himself in a tree. And that's What a Shocking Ghost, featuring the 10,000 volt ghost. There's certainly good reason this episode and villain are well remembered. This ghost, energy personified, melts a lock with ease the very first time we see him, and even melts his way through a closed door. And visually, there's really no other monster or spirit out there like him. He's such a complicated design because he does technically have a suit underneath, but he's not just your average costume that can be unmasked so easily, and he poses a real threat that we are shown from the jump. Get too close to him and you could end up very sincerely hurt. Even when luring him out with the book, they make sure to protect themselves by keeping far away from him, and there's just something off-putting about his face. He's simultaneously cartoonish looking and silly, and yet there's still something menacing that comes from that as well. And it's so memorable to have a villain that's just made up of a bunch of random paint strokes. He doesn't have line art and is just constantly visually moving. It makes him stand out, especially in a show that is made up of such a specific style of limited animation. As for who he is, we do at least get a red herring with Mr. Collins, who has a good amount of moments of suspicion, like trying to take the letter. Funny in retrospect that he's the only innocent person here. But of course, sometimes it really is as obvious as it seems. The man who supposedly disappeared, but left no body, was in fact still alive. There was no body to be found. Though I wonder who runs the pet shop. I imagine it wasn't supposed to be him and that the owner was one of the people scared away. That's pretty self-explanatory. But does that mean he was taking care of the pets? Obviously the parrot recognizes him and knows his secrets. I have to imagine they were getting taken care of. Really irresponsible for the owner to leave the animals though. And who allowed them to sell those monkeys? Mayor Dudley is at least a decent additional twist. You might expect that if we solve who the ghost is, and it's not him, it's a wrap. But his involvement as the leader of the plan adds an extra touch of meat for this mystery. And it's always fun to see the moments from the opening title sequence come to life in the actual episode they come from, of which this has multiple. It may not be explicitly Christmas themed, but it's a pretty nice episode to throw on once that winter season hits. Like with the Laurel and Hardy episode we recently covered. The entire wintry DVD set is pretty nice if you want to throw on the most winter appropriate episodes without having to switch through the different DVDs to find them. I know there's at least one more we'll be getting to before the year is over. I'm sure you know what that is as well. But as for this one, it's a fun episode where you can sort of really feel the gang are just a bunch of teens kinda getting into mischief more than most of these. The Scooby-Doo Show holds some of the most iconic members of this rogues gallery, and this first season episode is easily one of the strongest. I think that's enough for today though. We've had plenty of fun with this shocking spirit, so I'll let you move on for now. If you want to support the channel, the Patreon is now live, and there's even a brand new 39-minute bonus video, the most requested of the channel, covering Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island, which is exclusively available there for supporters. The Patreon is mainly just for supporting the work here, but that bonus should at least now be a nice little extra if you choose to do it. I suppose I'll see you around. Bye!